Steve here from Advanced Global MSP Coaching. And today I want to talk to you about 5 whys MSPs do not know how to hold the techs accountable. The challenges MSP face in holding techs accountable is often attributed to a combination of systemic issues. An issue like a lack of clear management structure and training, deeply ingrained poor habits within the service delivery operation. Techs are the revenue generators and the ones meeting client expectations. And then there's the lack of data and the lack of outside coaching. Duh. In other words, the overarching reason is that techs are critical to the operation and not to be disturbed. Let's take each one of these one at a time. For a lack of clear management structure and training, a lack of management training and focus on process, those standard operating engagement, disengagement processes, they're not standardized, they're not written down or codified, and each tech isn't encouraged, coached, mentored on following a standard operating process. There's the lack of necessary tools and data. We're speaking mostly of the PSA automation and reports like resource utilization and real-time time entry, and the absence of a service coordinator. And the service coordinator fills two functions. First of all, they take all of the non-billable work off the techs, therefore making the techs more efficient. All the techs have to do is focus on the right next ticket, and of course, engage and disengage according to the standard operating procedures. But the other thing that the coordinator does is a single point of coordination. So the techs are very narrow focused. They're focused on their right next ticket and all of their responsibilities. It takes a service coordinator to take that overarching view of all the open tickets, driving them from cradle to grave. So we talk about deeply ingrained poor habits within the service delivery operation, and that's mostly the failure to enforce real-time time entry and the necessary of documentation, encouraging the techs that documentation, time entries, and automatically updating the client is part of the engagement disengagement process and part of what they're getting paid for. And then there's communication failures, both internal to the MSP. We think that if we fire off an email, we've now made somebody responsible, when in truth, that email is never read. It may be filed in a folder, or there may be an Outlook rule that just deletes it when it comes from Autotask. And then there's the external communication. Without an automated communication protocol, the clients are receiving inconsistent communication, and surveys show that clients judge an MSP, judge an individual tech based on their communication, consistent communication, not necessarily on their ability to resolve issues. So if you have a situation where these clients are favoring this tech, it's most likely because of inconsistent communication. Sally does a better job communicating with them than Bob. And then there's confusion over billing and agreements. And quite frankly, we should just move all this off the techs. The techs aren't really concerned with the relationship with the client. They're really not concerned with what the invoice rate is, and we shouldn't burden them with knowing or being worried about that information. They should focus on the right next ticket. They should focus on engaging and disengaging according to best practice protocols, and how the client is invoiced, what the client is invoiced should be concerned. Just tell us what type of work you did and focus on the next client. So we get it. Techs are the revenue generators and the ones meeting client expectations. But they also need to adhere to good engagement, disengagement protocols for no other reason than because that's what they're being paid to do. There needs to be a positive collaboration relationship one in which the manager is in the position of a coach manager, not executioner. Keep in mind, the techs want to do a good job. And according to Deming, the problem is not the text, the problem is the process, the tools, and of course, the information that's available to them. Speaking of information available to them, another reason MSPs don't know how to hold techs accountable is because of the lack of data. Holding techs accountable is one of the hardest parts of a service manager's job. And without good data, it's virtually impossible. They have one arm tied behind their back and they just have no way to be successful in their role. But with the right reporting, accountability stops being personal and it starts being professional. Keep in mind that the techs want to do a good job. It's the process and it's the tools and it's the lack of data that is holding them back. So, advanced live reports turn raw data into actionable insights, which can be used to develop a positive, collaborative coaching, mentoring environment. And then outside of all of this, the lack of outside coaching, I know it sounds self serving, doesn't it? But it's still true. Here's the part most MSPs don't realize. Autotask assumes you are going to hire an expert to fully configure the PSA automation because they give you an empty box. They give you very little information. If you ask them, how do I do this? They go here. And you go, well, okay, but now that I'm here, what do I do? You're on your own. They expect you to hire an expert. Even their own in-house professional services don't have the answers you need. And those answers are standard operating procedures. Remember, Autotask is software developers. They are not an MSP. They don't actually know how we use the software, and they don't know the procedures and the processes that work best for an MSP to be maximize efficiency, maximize the client experience, as well as move from a chaotic to a Zen work environment. And the third thing is Autotest doesn't provide you advanced live reports, which are the key to holding techs accountable. Autotask provides basic reports they think you need, thinking without real world experience. I mean, think about it for a minute. Do they listen to you? Do they write live reports based on your requests? Do they write advanced live reports, taking your base level requests, testing it against other MSPs, putting it on steroids so it provides rich information, information you weren't even thinking that you needed? And do they walk with you side by side in a done for you relationship? So at the end of the day, it's not worth your time to develop standard operating processes. How to create a positive collaborative coaching mentoring relationship, or figure out how to fully configure the PS automation software, or learn to write live reports. It would be better for you to piggyback off those that have gone before you. Thus, going outside and hiring a coach makes financial sense. Your only responsibility is to purchase tools and coaching that you need in order to be in a position to hold the techs accountable. For more information or a free tech accountability strategy call with me, just email me at info@agmspcoaching.com. That email again is info@agmspcoaching.com. Other than that, have an awesome day.